The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive silver bowl turned upside down. Thousands of seats rose in circles around the center floor, filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that human eyes struggled to understand their shapes. Crystals that spoke with musical voices sat next to creatures made of living metal. Gas beings floated in special containers while rock-like aliens shifted slowly in their heavy chairs. Commander Hyunwoo stood in the center of it all, looking very small and very human. His black hair was neat, his uniform simple and clean. Next to the towering aliens around him, he looked like a child among giants. But his dark eyes were calm as he watched the chaos unfold around him. The meeting had started well enough. Earth had sent its best diplomats to ask for membership in the council. They had prepared speeches about human achievements, about their desire for peace, about what they could offer to the galactic community. Hyunwoo had practiced his presentation for weeks. None of that mattered now. The trouble started when Ambassador Kresh of the Braktar delegation stood up. The Braktar were huge creatures built like walking tanks. Kresh had 4 massive arms, each one thick with muscle. His skin looked like black armor, and his eyes glowed red in his skull-like face. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the hall like thunder. "This is a waste of time," Kresh declared, pointing one of his 4 hands at Hyunwoo. "Look at this creature. It is weak, it is small, it has no claws, no natural armor, no poison, no fire breath. How can such a pathetic being represent a species worthy of council membership?" Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some aliens nodded in agreement. Others whispered among themselves. Hyunwoo felt their eyes on him, judging, measuring, finding him lacking. So young, the Earth diplomatic attaché stepped closer to Hyunwoo. She was younger than him, with short black hair and worried eyes. "Commander," she whispered urgently, "perhaps we should request time to prepare a better demonstration of human capabilities." But before Hyunwoo could answer, another voice joined the conversation. This one was beautiful, like singing crystal. It came from Lady Vex of the Velnari, beings who looked like living glass sculptures. Her transparent body caught the light of the hall and threw rainbows across the walls. "The Braktar speak truth, though they lack grace in saying it," Lady Vex said, her musical voice carrying easily through the great space. "Every species in this council has proven their strength. The Thakmor can survive in the hearts of stars. The Zephyrians can manipulate gravity with their minds. The Corvan Empire conquered 12 systems with nothing but their natural abilities." She gestured toward Hyunwoo with one crystal hand. "But what do humans have? They build machines to fly because they cannot fly themselves. They create weapons because they are too weak to fight with tooth and claw. They wear clothes because their skin cannot protect them from heat or cold. They are a species of tools and tricks, not true strength." More voices joined in. The debate grew louder. Some species seemed curious about humans, but many agreed with the Braktar and Velnari. Humans were too new, too different, too weak. Hyunwoo listened to it all with the same calm expression. He had expected this. Earth's intelligence services had warned him that many council species valued physical strength above all else. Diplomacy among the stars often came down to who could hit hardest and survive longest. The council arbiter finally called for order. The arbiter was not really alive in any way humans understood. It was pure energy, contained in a field of shimmering light that floated above the center of the hall. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The debate grows tiresome," the arbiter announced. "There is a simple solution to this question. The humans will face the trial of dominance." The hall fell silent. Even the whispers stopped. So Young grabbed Hyunwoo's arm, her face pale. "Commander, the trial of dominance is combat. Single combat. To the death or surrender. The rules are ancient and clear," the arbiter continued. "The challenging species must face a champion chosen by those who question their worthiness. Victory grants council membership. Defeat means exile from council space forever." Ambassador Kresh smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "The Braktar offer our greatest warrior as champion. Let the humans send their strongest fighter if they have one." A section of the floor began to glow, and from it rose a platform. On that platform stood something that made even the bravest council members step back. It was a Braktar, but not like Kresh. This one was built for war. The creature stood 3 meters tall, its forearms thick with muscle and scars. Bio-enhanced plates covered its natural armor. Weapons hung from every part of its massive frame. Plasma cannons, energy blades, gravity hammers, molecular disruptors. Each weapon alone could level a city block. "I am Gorth the Render," the champion announced, his voice like grinding metal. "I have killed warriors from 47 different species. I have never been defeated in single combat. I have crushed the strongest the galaxy has to offer." Gorth looked down at Hyunwoo and laughed. "And now they send me this tiny, soft creature. Is this some kind of joke?" The crowd waited. This was the moment when Earth would reveal its hidden weapon, its secret advantage. Perhaps the human would call for powered armor or energy shields or some terrible weapon of his own. Instead, Hyunwoo stepped forward. "I accept the challenge," he said quietly. The simple words fell into the silence like stones into still water. So Young stared at him in shock. "Commander, you cannot be serious. You are not a soldier. You are a diplomat." "And what weapons will you choose, little human?" Gorth asked, clearly amused. "What mighty tools will your weak species provide?" Hyunwoo looked up at the massive alien warrior. Then he began to remove his jacket, folding it carefully and setting it aside. He loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. When he looked up again, something had changed in his eyes. They were still calm, but now there was depth there, like looking into a very deep, very still pool. "I choose to face you as I am," Hyunwoo said. The crowd stirred in confusion. Some aliens laughed. Others shook their heads in pity. The human had no weapons, no armor, no visible enhancements of any kind. He looked exactly like what he was, a middle-aged diplomat in a business suit. "Impossible," Lady Vex whispered. "Surely they have some hidden advantage." But Hyunwoo stood there in his simple clothes, empty hands at his sides, facing down a warrior who could tear apart starships with his bare hands. The Arbiter's energy field pulsed. "The terms are accepted. The trial will begin in 1 hour. Both champions will be transported to the arena of testing. Victory goes to the last warrior standing or until one yields." As the crowd began to disperse, talking excitedly among themselves, So Young pulled Hyunwoo aside. "Sir, this is madness. Gorth has killed trained warriors wearing power armor. You are one man with no weapons." Hyunwoo smiled at her, the first real expression he had shown all day. "So Young, do you remember the Braktar ship we found 3 years ago?" She frowned, confused by the change of subject. "The exploration vessel with the failing life support? We rescued the crew. Yes. 47 Braktar warriors slowly dying in the dark between stars." Hyunwoo picked up his jacket and put it back on, straightening his tie. "They were so grateful when we saved them. They told us many interesting things about their species." He started walking toward the transport platform that would take him to the arena. "Sometimes, So Young, the most important thing is not how hard you can hit. Sometimes it is knowing exactly where to touch." As he stepped onto the platform, Hyunwoo looked back at the council hall one last time. Thousands of alien beings watched him, most expecting to see him die in the next hour. They saw a weak human, soft and helpless without his machines. They had no idea what they were really looking at. The platform began to glow, and Commander Hyunwoo disappeared, transported to face his trial. In 1 hour, the galaxy would learn something new about human strength. Something that had nothing to do with weapons or armor or technology. Something that started with a whisper instead of a shout. 18 months had passed since Commander Yuna vanished without a trace. The galaxy had moved on. New executioners had taken her place. Her legend had become a story told in dark corners of space stations and trading posts. The galaxy's most feared enforcer was dead. Everyone believed it. That belief shattered on a cold morning at Haven Station. Traffic Control Officer Kyungju was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee when the distress signal came through. He nearly choked on the bitter liquid as the emergency codes flashed across his screen. This is civilian transport New Dawn requesting emergency docking. A tired voice crackled through the communication system. We have critical hull damage and failing life support. Kyungju looked at his scanner readings. The ship was barely holding together. Radiation burns covered its hull like scars. One engine was completely dead. The other was running on emergency. Power. New Dawn, this is Haven Control. You are cleared for Emergency Bay 7. Medical teams are standing by. Negative on medical teams, the voice replied. I have one passenger only. No injuries requiring treatment. That was strange. Most ships requesting emergency docking carried dozens of passengers or crew members. Kyungju marked it in his log and watched the battered transport limp toward the docking bay. Security Chief Wonshik was already waiting when the transport's airlock opened. Haven Station was neutral territory, but emergency arrivals still required screening. Pirates and smugglers often used distress calls to avoid proper inspections. The airlock hissed open. Steam poured out from the damaged ship's failing environmental systems. A single figure stepped through the vapor. Wonshik's hand moved to his weapon. Then his jaw dropped. Commander Yuna stood before him, alive and unmistakable. But she looked nothing like the cold executioner from the wanted bulletins. Her military uniform was gone, replaced by simple civilian clothes. Her face, once hard as stone, showed something he had never seen before. She looked almost human. More shocking still, she carried a small bundle in her arms. A baby, wrapped in soft cloth, sleeping peacefully against her chest. I request sanctuary, under the Haven Accords, Yuna said quietly. I carry refugee status documentation for myself and my ward. Wonshik stared at her. The galaxy's most wanted fugitive was requesting asylum. In his 20 years of security work, he had never encountered anything like this. Commander Yuna, he said carefully. You were declared dead 18 months ago. There was a memorial service. Reports of my death were premature, she replied. I am claiming refugee status. I have committed no crimes against Haven Station or its territories. The baby stirred in her arms but did not wake. Wonshik noticed how gently she rocked the child. This was not the behavior of a cold-blooded killer. I need to call my supervisor, he said. Of course, but I will not surrender the child to anyone except proper civilian authorities. This is non-negotiable. Within minutes, Haven Station's command center was buzzing with activity. Captain Donghae arrived at the docking bay with a full security team. Medical officers waited nearby with scanning equipment. Communications specialists jammed all outgoing signals to prevent news of Yuna's arrival from spreading. Captain Donghae was a veteran of many conflicts. He had seen every kind of refugee, smuggler, and criminal the galaxy could produce. But standing, face to face with the legendary commander Yuna, left him speechless. You are supposed to be dead, he said finally. So I have been told, Yuna replied. May we proceed with standard refugee processing? The child needs proper food and shelter. The baby chose that moment to wake up. Small eyes opened and looked around with curiosity. Tiny hands reached toward the bright lights of the docking bay. The child made soft sounds that seemed almost like laughter. Medical Officer Heejin stepped forward with her scanner. May I examine the infant? Just to ensure health and wellness. Yuna nodded but kept the baby close. The scanner hummed as it analyzed biological signatures. Heejin frowned at the readings, ran the scan again, then looked up with confusion. Captain, she said quietly, I need to speak with you privately. They moved a few steps away. Heejin whispered urgently in Donghae's ear. His eyes widened and he stared at the child in Yuna's arms. Are you certain? He asked. Absolutely certain. I've run the scan 3 times. Donghae walked back to Yuna. His expression had changed from suspicion to amazement. Commander, where did you find this child? That is a long story, Captain. One I am prepared to tell the proper authorities. But first, I need assurance that both the child and I will be treated according to galactic refugee laws. What exactly are you asking for? Protection. Sanctuary. The right to tell our story without interference from the Galactic Council. The implications hit Donghae like a meteor strike. If Yuna was requesting protection from the Council, it meant her disappearance had not been accidental. It meant she had discovered something important enough to fake her own death, and the child she protected was clearly at the center of it all. "I can offer temporary sanctuary while we sort this out," he said. "But you understand that your presence here will not remain secret for long." "I understand. I am prepared for the consequences." Yuna looked down at the sleeping baby. For just a moment her guard dropped completely. Donghae saw something in her expression that shocked him more than her survival. Love. Pure, protective love. The galaxy's most feared executioner had become a mother. "There are quarters available in the civilian section," Donghae said. "You and the child will be safe there while we process your refugee application." "Thank you, Captain." As they walked through Haven Station's corridors, other residents stopped and stared. Word was already spreading through the gossip networks. The dead had returned to life. In her temporary quarters, Yuna fed the baby with practiced ease. She sang a soft lullaby in a language Donghae did not recognize. The child smiled and reached for her face with tiny fingers. "Commander," Donghae said gently, "this child is not what it appears to be, is it?" Yuna looked up at him. For the first time since her arrival, she smiled. "Captain, this child is exactly what it appears to be. That is what makes this situation so extraordinary." Outside, emergency communications were already racing toward the Galactic Council. The impossible had happened. Commander Yuna was alive, and she had brought something with her that would change the galaxy forever. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within hours of Yuna's arrival at Haven Station, encrypted messages flew across star systems. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent communications. Emergency council sessions were called on 7 different worlds. The galaxy's most feared executioner was alive, and she was protecting something impossible. Intelligence Officer Jiwan arrived at Haven Station 3 days later. She was tall and thin, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her job was to ask the questions no one else dared to ask. She found Yuna in the station's small garden area. The former executioner sat on a bench, holding the baby while he played with a colorful toy. Other refugees watched from a distance, whispering among themselves. "Commander Yuna," Jiwan said, sitting down beside her. "We need to talk." Yuna looked up. "Officer Jiwan, I expected someone would come eventually. The entire galaxy thinks you're dead. Your memorial statue is quite impressive. Yet here you are, very much alive, caring for a child that should not exist." The baby gurgled happily and reached for Jiwan's shiny uniform buttons. She pulled back slightly, unused to being around small children. "His name is Sungho," Yuna said, gently. "It means star protection. Commander, I need you to tell me what happened, where you went, how you survived, where this child came from." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She watched Sungho play with his toy, a simple rattle that made soft musical sounds. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "The mission to Kepler 442b was not what the Council told me it would be." "What do you mean?" "They said I was investigating a weapons facility, a threat to galactic security. They were lying." Jiwan leaned forward. This was not what she had expected to hear. "What did you find instead?" "I found a ship. A colony ship from Earth drifting in space for over 300 years. The words hit Jiwan like a physical blow. Earth was a legend, a dead world from ancient history. Humans were extinct, had been for centuries. That's impossible. Humans died out long ago when their sun expanded. "No," Yuna said firmly. "They didn't all die. Some escaped. They built colony ships and tried to find new homes among the stars." She shifted Sungho to her other arm. The baby looked up at her with bright, curious eyes. The ship was called New Horizon. It had been lost for generations, drifting between star systems. The people aboard were the last survivors of their species. "How many survivors?" "When I arrived, there were 47 humans left alive, men, women, children. They had been born on that ship. lived their entire lives in space waiting for a chance to find a new world. Jiwon's training told her this was impossible. But looking at the child in Yuna's arms, she could not deny the evidence of her own eyes. "Thew, ship was dying," Yuna continued. "Life support systems failing. Food supplies nearly gone. They had maybe weeks left before everything shut down completely." "What were your orders?" "Eliminate any threat to galactic stability. No survivors, no witnesses. Complete sterilization of the area." The garden fell silent except for Sung-ho's happy babbling. Jiwon stared at Yuna, beginning to understand the magnitude of what she was hearing. "But you didn't follow orders. I met them first. I saw their faces. I watched parents holding their children. I saw families who had struggled for generations just to survive." Tears formed in Yuna's eyes. Jiwon had never seen the legendary executioner show any emotion. There was a woman named Yun-sun. She was dying from system failure sickness, but she kept working to keep the children's area running. A man named Jae-won, who had spent 50 years maintaining the ship's engines with spare parts and hope. "Commander, you were ordered to eliminate threats. These people were not threats." That's what I realized. They were not developing weapons. They were not plotting against anyone. They were just trying to live, to preserve their culture, to give their children a future. Sung-ho dropped his toy. Yuna picked it up and handed it back to him with infinite patience. "So what did you do?" "I helped them evacuate. I destroyed my own ship to fake my death. I used the Silent Thunder's escape pods to get the survivors to safety." "Where are the others now?" "Scattered across the galaxy, hidden among the population, living quiet lives, keeping their heritage secret. They chose to blend in rather than risk discovery." Jiwon looked at the baby. "But not this one." Sung-ho's parents died during the evacuation. Equipment failure. They asked me to protect him with their last breaths. The weight of responsibility in Yuna's voice was crushing. This woman who had once killed without question had become a guardian willing to sacrifice everything. "Do you understand what you've done?" Jiwon asked. "You've committed treason against the Galactic Council. You've harbored members of an extinct species. You've falsified your own death." "Yes. The penalty for any one of these crimes is execution." "No." "Then why?" Yuna looked down at Sung-ho. The baby had fallen asleep in her arms, peaceful and trusting. "Because 15 years ago, I took an oath to protect the galaxy's peace. I thought that meant following orders without question. Eliminating threats without mercy." She paused, stroking the baby's soft hair. "But I was wrong. Peace is not about eliminating differences. It's about protecting the innocent. And these people, these humans, they were the most innocent beings I had ever encountered. The Council will not see it that way. The Council has been lying about humans for centuries. They weren't victims of natural disaster. They were victims of systematic exclusion. When Earth's sun began to die, humans asked for help. They begged for refugee status. They offered to share their technology in exchange for sanctuary." Jiwon's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "The galaxy didn't just watch humanity die, Officer Jiwon. We ensured their extinction. We closed our borders. We denied their requests for aid. We let an entire species perish because we were afraid of them. The implications were staggering. If this was true, it meant the Galactic Council had covered up genocide for centuries." "I have proof," Yuna said quietly. "Records from the New Horizon, communications between human leaders and the Council, documentation of systematic denial of aid." She looked directly at Jiwon. "The question now is what you plan to do with this information." The trial of Commander Yuna became the most watched event in galactic history. Every news network carried live coverage. Every world sent representatives. The Great Hall of the Council of Seven Worlds had never seen such crowds. Yuna sat in the defendant's chair, wearing simple civilian clothes. Beside her, in a small protective carrier, baby Sung-ho slept peacefully. The sight of the galaxy's former executioner caring for an infant created whispers throughout the massive chamber. Prosecutor General Hyun-woo stood to address the court. He was the imposing figure with silver skin and deep voice that carried authority. "Members, Of the Council, fellow citizens of the galaxy, we are here to judge the most serious crimes possible. Commander Yuna stands accused of desertion, falsifying her death and harboring members of an extinct species. He gestured toward Yuna and the baby. The defendant abandoned her sworn duty. She betrayed the trust placed in her by this council. She has endangered galactic security by preserving genetic material from a species that was deemed too dangerous to survive. Murmurs filled the hall. Many in the audience had never seen a human before. They stared at Sung-Ho with mixture of curiosity and fear. The penalty for these crimes is clear, Hyun-Woo continued. Execution, and the illegal genetic sample must be turned over to proper research facilities for study and disposal. Yuna's jaw tightened at the word disposal, but she remained silent. Her defense coordinator had advised her to stay calm during the opening statements. Defense coordinator So-min rose to respond. She was smaller than the prosecutor, but her voice carried just as far. Honored council members, my client stands accused of crimes against galactic law. But I ask you to consider this question. What if the laws themselves were based on lies? She activated a holographic display that showed historical documents, charts and communications from centuries past. These are classified records from the Great Expansion period. They tell a very different story about humanity's extinction than the one we have all been taught. The hall fell silent. Even the council members leaned forward to see the display. Humans did not simply die when their sun expanded. They spent decades preparing for evacuation. They built colony ships. They developed advanced technologies that we still use today. And they asked for help. Document after document appeared on the display. Diplomatic messages, refugee applications, technological offers. Every request was denied. Every plea for sanctuary was rejected. The galaxy watched an entire species die and did nothing to help. Prosecutor Hyun-Woo jumped to his feet. These documents are classified for good reason. They have no bearing on the defendant's crimes. They have everything to do with her actions, So-min replied. Commander Yuna was ordered to eliminate the last survivors of a species that we had already condemned to death. She chose mercy over murder. The trial continued for days. Witness after witness took the stand to testify. Captain Ji-hoon of the merchant vessel Free Wind spoke about encounters with human survivors over the years. His weathered face showed emotion as he described their remarkable adaptability and kindness. I met a human family on Proxima Station about 10 years ago, he said. They were living under false names, working as engineers. The father had designed improvements to our ship's engines that increased efficiency by 30%. The mother was teaching alien children how to read. Did they seem dangerous to you? So-min asked. Dangerous? They were the most helpful people I ever met. They fixed our broken systems and wouldn't accept payment. Said they were just grateful to be allowed to live in peace. Engineer Nara testified about human innovations that had revolutionized space travel. Warp drive improvements, life support systems, communication technologies. Humans were incredibly creative, she explained. They saw problems differently than other species. Their solutions were elegant and effective. We are still using their designs today. But the most shocking testimony came from an unexpected source. Tae-hyung was a young maintenance worker at Haven Station. He had lived there his entire life. Quiet and unremarkable. When he took the witness stand, his hands shook nervously. I need to tell the truth, he said in a voice barely above a whisper. I am 1/4 human. Gasps echoed through the hall. Council members exchanged worried glances. My grandmother was human. She survived Earth's destruction and made her way to the outer colonies. She married my grandfather and they had children. My family has been hiding our heritage for 3 generations. So-min stepped forward. Are there others like you? Yes, many others. We live throughout the galaxy, hiding what we are because we know what happens to humans who reveal themselves. What do you mean? They disappear, get transferred to research facilities, are never seen again. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. If humans had been living secretly among the galactic population for generations, it meant the species had never truly been extinct. More witnesses came forward. A teacher with human ancestry, a ship captain whose great-grandfather had been human, a doctor who had been treating human descendants for years. The pattern became clear. Humans hadn't vanished. They had simply learned to hide. On the final day of testimony, Intelligence Officer Jiwon took the stand. She had spent weeks investigating Yuna's claims and reviewing the evidence. "The defendant's story is accurate," she stated. "The New Horizon colony ship was real. The survivors were peaceful refugees, not threats, and the original mission orders were based on false intelligence." She paused and looked directly at the council. "Moreover, our investigation has revealed that similar ships have been discovered and destroyed over the past 2 centuries. Each time the crews responsible were told they were eliminating dangerous threats. Each time, they were actually completing genocide." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Council members shouted at each other in various alien languages. Spectators demanded answers. Security forces struggled to maintain order. Through it all, Yuna sat calmly holding Sung-ho. The baby had woken during the commotion but seemed unafraid. He looked around with bright, curious eyes, as if the fate of his entire species being decided around him was just another interesting experience. Prosecutor Hyunwoo made one final attempt to salvage his case. Even if humans were treated unfairly, in the past, that does not excuse the defendant's actions. She violated her oath. She disobeyed direct orders. She must face the consequences. But the damage was done. The truth was out. The galaxy now knew that its government had systematically eliminated an entire species over centuries of deliberate neglect and active persecution. As the trial recessed for final deliberations, one question remained. Would the council admit their crimes and grant Yuna amnesty? Or would they continue the cover-up by executing the woman who had exposed their greatest shame? The answer would determine not just Yuna's fate, but the future of every human descendant hiding among the stars. The Council of 7 Worlds deliberated for 3 days. During that time, protests erupted across dozens of planets. Citizens demanded answers about the human genocide. News networks ran stories about hidden human descendants coming forward to reveal their heritage. The galaxy was changing and everyone knew it. On the morning of the 4th day, Yuna sat in her holding cell at the courthouse, feeding Sung-ho his breakfast. The baby had grown noticeably during the trial. He was sitting, up on his own now, reaching for everything with curious hands. "Whatever happens today," she whispered to him, "remember that you are loved. Remember that your people were brave and kind and strong." Sung-ho babbled happily and grabbed her finger with his tiny hand. Guard Captain Minsu arrived to escort them to the courtroom. He had been watching Yuna and the baby for weeks, and his opinion of the former executioner had changed completely. "Commander," he said quietly, "whatever the council decides, you did the right thing." "Thank you, Captain. That means more than, you know." The Great Hall was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every world in the galaxy had come to witness the verdict. Outside, millions more watched on live broadcasts. The council leader called for order. His forearms gestured for silence as the crowd settled down. "Commander Yuna," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you stand before this council accused of the highest crimes against galactic law. The evidence presented during this trial has been extraordinary and disturbing." Yuna stood, still holding Sung-ho. The baby looked around with wide eyes at all the faces staring at them. "However," the council leader continued, "this trial has revealed truths that shake the very foundation of our government. We have learned that orders given to you were based on deliberate deception. We have learned that our predecessors committed acts that violate every principle of galactic justice." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not what anyone had expected. "The council finds that your orders to eliminate peaceful refugees were illegal and immoral. You were right to disobey them. Therefore, we grant you full amnesty for all actions taken during your mission to the Kepler system." The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Yuna closed her eyes and held Sung-ho closer, relief washing over her like a warm wave. But the council leader was not finished. "Furthermore, this council formally acknowledges the historical genocide committed against the human species. We recognize that our predecessors deliberately denied aid to refugees and systematically eliminated survivors over a period of centuries. The applause died down as the gravity of his words sank in. Effective immediately, all humans and human descendants are granted full citizenship rights in the galactic community. Any who wish to reveal their heritage may do so without fear of persecution. Captain Donghae watched from the audience as history unfolded before his eyes. He thought about all the human descendants living in secret on Haven Station. Finally, free to live openly. Commander Yuna, the council leader said, turning back to her. We offer you reinstatement to your former rank with full honors. The galaxy needs officers of your integrity and courage. Yuna looked down at Sung-ho, who was trying to grab the shiny medals on a nearby guard's uniform. She smiled and shook her head. I thank the council for this generous offer, but I must decline. My duty now is to this child and to the human survivors who have lived in hiding for so long. The council leader nodded with understanding. Then we hereby appoint you as the first Human Affairs Coordinator, with full diplomatic status and resources to help human descendants integrate into galactic society. I accept this position with honor. The formal proceedings ended, but the real work was just beginning. Within days, humans and human descendants began emerging from hiding across the galaxy. Teachers and engineers, doctors and artists, families who had kept their heritage secret for generations. They came to Haven Station, which had been designated as the first official human sanctuary. Yuna established the New Earth Foundation in Dui Tsatinda, a large section of the station, creating spaces for families to live openly and safely. 6 months after the trial, Yuna stood in the Foundation's new school, watching human children play alongside alien classmates. Sung-ho, now walking on unsteady legs, toddled between the other children with endless curiosity. The integration is going better than expected, said Dr. Heejin, who had become the Foundation's chief medical officer. The human children are adapting quickly. The alien children are fascinated by their new classmates. Yuna nodded, but her attention was focused on Sung-ho. He had found a group of older children who were building something with colorful blocks. They welcomed him into their game without hesitation. He's going to grow up in a very different galaxy than his parents did, Heejin observed. A better galaxy? Yuna replied. That evening, Yuna sat in her quarters reading to Sungo before bedtime. The book was about Earth, the blue and green world that humans had once called home. The pictures showed oceans and forests, mountains and cities, all lost to time and stellar evolution. Someday, she told him as he looked at the pictures with wonder, humans will have a new home among the stars, maybe many homes, and you will help build them. Sung-ho reached for the book, trying to touch the image of Earth's blue oceans. His small hand pressed against the page as if he could feel the water his ancestors had once known. 3 years later, Yuna stood on Haven Station's observation deck watching the stars. Sung-ho, now a curious 4-year-old, pressed his face against the transparent aluminum window. Are there people on those stars, Mama Yuna? He asked. She had never asked him to call her Mama, but he had started using the word naturally. It filled her heart every time she heard it. Yes, little star, she said. There are people on many of those worlds, and someday you might visit them all. Will I meet other humans like me? You already have. And there will be many more. The Foundation now housed over 300 human families. Children laughed in the corridors where once only silence had reigned. The cafeteria served foods from dozens of worlds, including recipes recreated from ancient Earth cookbooks. More importantly, human descendants throughout the galaxy were no longer afraid. They worked openly in their chosen professions, contributed their unique perspectives to galactic society, and raised their children with pride in their heritage. The galaxy's former executioner had found her true calling, not in ending lives, but in preserving them. Not in following orders blindly, but in choosing what was right over what was easy. As Sung-ho fell asleep that night, Yuna sang him an old human lullaby that one of the survivors had taught her. The words spoke of hope and dreams, of journeys among the stars, of children who would build a better tomorrow. The galaxy's executioner had vanished, In her place stood a guardian, a protector, a mother who had chosen love over duty and hope over fear. And in the arms of that guardian, the future of humanity slept peacefully, dreaming of stars.